Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Booktube Chicks Book Club monthly discussion. Tonight we are having our May discussion for Beartown by Fredrik Backman. As you can see, Desiree is holding that up for us. Um, my name is Chloe. You guys are on my channel, if you didn't already know. And I am with Desiree from Libri Labra tonight, who is going to be introducing herself in just a moment. But if you've never been to one of our live shows before, basically the whole gist of it is for the next 5 to 10 minutes, we're going to be doing spoiler-free discussion and initial thoughts. So our ratings and stuff like that. And then after that, we're going to go into a spoiler discussion for the next hour or so, talking about this book. So, Desiree, do you want to go ahead and do your initial thoughts?
Yeah. Do you want me to also provide the synopsis? Because I can do that too.
Yes, please.
All right. So anyway, my name is Desiree. You can find me at Libri Labra on all the things like Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, YouTube. And this was my pick. Fredrik Backman has also written A Man Named Ove. I think that's how you pronounce that. He's got like a ton of books. And I've read some of his short stories as well, and they've just always been good. So I was really excited about reading this. This is about Beartown, which is a hockey town, and much of this town's success revolves around the success of the hockey team. It's very integrated in the town's economy, and there was a time where their hockey team was on top and super successful, and so the town was super successful and just bringing in lots of money into their economy. And then at some point, I don't know if they described like what actually happened, but the hockey team started kind of going down in rank, which significantly impacted the town's economy. And so they wanted to get that team back up to where it was so that the town could thrive again. So there's a lot of characters in here, and you're kind of seeing what they're going through from different perspectives. And yeah, so that's kind of the synopsis. There's also like a very pivotal moment that happens in the story that changes everything, everybody's perspective of what's going on, of the sense of community, of everything. So I guess we can throw out some trigger warnings because there is sexual assault in this story. Is there? I don't think there was any death, but there's definitely like, teenagers drinking and doing stuff and going to parties. And do you have any other trigger warnings?
I think there's a little trigger warning for some homophobia from
Yeah,
characters
yeah,
in memories, not any like present character.
yeah. And then in regards to my, initial thoughts, I personally am not a huge fan of like third person. Um, so I was a little concerned as I started reading this, especially with all of the characters. And there's like, I feel like there's a ton of world building that happens. Like the beginning, a big chunk of the beginning is kind of world building and setting the tone so that you understand like how this community functions and how the people interact with each other, and and like each of the people's lives. So I was a little concerned about that, but I do love character development. And I think a lot of the story was that, even though we're following different characters. um, I personally loved it. This is a translation, but I love Fredrik Backman's writing. I have several other of his books. I'm going to continue reading them, and I personally gave this 5 stars.
So, I was reading some reviews for this book on Goodreads, and I am definitely in the minority with this book because I did not enjoy it. Um, I don't even want to say I did not enjoy it as much. I just didn't enjoy it. I rated this book 2.5 stars, which for me, a 3 is kind of like just very middle of the road. Okay, didn't love it, didn't hate it, but a 3 didn't feel like a good rating for this one for me because I wasn't middle of the road with this. I was mostly not really enjoying it, for a variety of reasons, I would say. Um, one of them being there are so many characters to follow, and it's very hard to keep up with them. Excuse me. Um, but also the first 22 chapters of this book, this whole book is 50 chapters. The first 22 chapters are just talking about this town and hockey and how everything is because of hockey before the sexual assault. And I just didn't care. I don't care about how everybody's life in this town is hockey. I wanted things to be a little more sped up instead of just talking about how everybody knows everybody and hinting at something happening, but nothing has happened. And then after the sexual assault, things started to pick up a little bit because we're following the aftermath of this tragedy. But I just, I couldn't bring myself to care anymore because it felt like the whole book was like, well, this happens because of hockey and everything comes back to hockey. And I'm like, that's great that hockey is this town's thing, but I did not care. Which is very unfortunate because I was looking forward to reading this book after hearing such great reviews. Um, but it just, I don't think it, well, it definitely just wasn't for me. But I don't know if I'm gonna pick up anything by him anymore because I saw the movie for A Man Called Ove / A Man Called Otto, and I really enjoyed it. So I'm interested in that. But I'm hesitant because I didn't like Beartown so much. So I don't really know where I fall with this author and the various books. The only thing I know for sure is I'm not going to continue on with this series. I believe it's a trilogy. So I think I'm going to pass on the rest of this series. And I think on that note, we can go straight into spoilers as well.
I know that, like, there was it's obviously about hockey, right? But at the same time, it's almost not. Like, hockey is just, I feel like, the tool that they were using for all the characters to just, I don't know, it was like the foundation. But to me, it just felt so much more about, community and family, and definitely like toxic masculinity, and how that comes up when you have, not only this hockey team, this is very, male oriented sport, but then, like, because the town is so dependent on the hockey team, like, I feel like that made all those players egos so much worse. um because they knew it wasn't just like, oh yeah, we're in this team for this town. Like, everybody had their eyes on this team. And um that you see the toxic masculinity from the beginning, and then you see how it's difficult for the characters to kind of like grapple with that. But it's kind of like a journey that all the characters have to go through to acknowledge that there's this toxic masculinity happening, and how can they change it, how can they make it better. And uh there was supposed to be a question in there somewhere, but, like, I think I just lost what I was going to ask you. Well, I mean, like, what do you think could have been different for you to care about it? Or do you feel like just because it was hockey and you don't care about hockey, that's why you didn't care about anybody?
Well, I feel like the lead up to the main events of the story took so long. If that had been shortened a bit and we had gotten more to the point, I may not have been so bored in the beginning to just not care by the time we got to everything going on. Because I mean, I remember on like one of the days that I was reading it, I was like almost 150 pages in, I feel like, and it still had not happened. And I'm like, why are we spending all of this time for like that. I feel like that's where people are going to get lost, is at the beginning, where we're going chapter by chapter by chapter and still nothing really interesting is happening. Does that make sense?
I mean, I hear what you're saying. I don't agree with you. I guess cuz like for me just, and I'm not going to say that I didn't feel that kind of slow pacing, because I definitely felt it while I was reading it. It was kind of like, okay, so because there were so many characters, there was just so much to establish. And like in the beginning, as these names are coming up, you kind of like, you're not really sure who they are, why they're important, but like I don't know if it's the fact that I finished the book and then I started watching the show, that I just have them so visually ingrained in my mind. Like they're so unique, all of the characters. Um, but I really feel like to feel that, you have to take time to do that. Like, um, I think one of the first families that gets introduced is like Peter and crap, I don't remember the girl's name now. But Peter and his wife, and they have the two kids, Leo and what was the girl's name? The daughter's
The
name.
girl's name was Maya.
Yeah,
The
yeah,
girl's
yeah.
name was
Okay.
Maya, and the wife was Kira.
So like even with those four characters, right? Leo didn't play that big of a role, but he was there. Like you have this family that is dealing with a loss. They lost a son, and then you have the father that's coming back to the town to kind of be involved in the hockey team to hopefully get them back up to where they used to be. And his wife is there supporting him, but she also has her own life and her own goals, and she's a lawyer. And like, um even just within those four people, there's a lot going on in regards to how they interact with each other. And it's so complex when like, and we are in spoiler territory, so like, here's the father that's like trying to make this hockey team better, and then it's his daughter that ends up being raped by the star hockey player. So like that in and of itself, like if there was no other characters in this story and just them, like that in and of itself is like crazy. But then like there are so many other characters. There's Amit, who has this huge crush on Maya, and he has his own storyline in regards to how he gets involved with the hockey team, and like his mother, and he's dealing with racism. We didn't mention that. That's like another trigger. There's also racism in there. um and like it's just like I feel like every single character had their own journey to go through, despite the fact that they were in the same town and part of the same team. And like they had very distinct paths. And like I'm surprised that I did come to care about them so much, because of the fact that it was told in third person. And almost always when a story is told in third person, I feel like there's this distance. um and I prefer things being told in first person. I prefer being in the character's head. So I think that it was cool that he was still able to do this from so many different perspectives and for in third person, and still get me to care about all of the characters. Um, I know there are discussion questions back here, so hold on. So one of the questions is, how do Peter and Kira complement each other in their relationship? What does he make up for her weaknesses, and vice versa? Do you think they have a solid marriage, a happy one?
I mean, I think I can definitely say that Kira is, um she's not as passionate about hockey as he is. Because I remember a distinct line that she had said something along the lines of like they had a game the next day, and she goes, "And when I go to the game, I will pretend to like hockey, and then I will go back to not caring about hockey," or something like that. So I mean, you have to have somebody who's not involved in the hockey world, and I think she does that well.
They seem to be a really good pair. And um, especially when you contrast that with Kevin's parents, like, obviously Kevin's dad is just very strict. Um, he puts a lot of pressure on Kevin. And then, like, I feel like you can tell that Kevin's mom is somewhat fearful of him because she's noticing things. Like, throughout the story, she's noticing things that are happening with Kevin, but she's not saying anything. So, like, um, there was like some dysfunction going on there. So I feel like, with Peter and Kira, it was a much healthier relationship. They communicated. It sounded like they had fun together. They also liked to support each other, even though, it seemed like Peter was a little bit selfish. But considering that they had moved back to the town for him to get this job, uh, at least that's what I remember, right? Is that what they were saying? I think.
Yeah, I think so.
Like, it makes sense that his career would be slightly prioritized since the move was like for him to do that.
What was I gonna say? Yeah, I can't remember.
It says the town and the parents of the Beartown junior hockey team place great expectations on the shoulders of 17-year-old boys. How does this pressure affect the boys? Have the club's leaders, David, Soon, Peter, and others, prepared the boys to deal with this pressure? Have the boys' parents?
I feel like, okay, so a couple of things here. Soon, I feel like probably did do a bit more preparation. He felt like I mean, they're saying he's around like retirement age, but I know they were trying to fire him. So I
Right.
feel like he's kind of like a father figure / grandfather figure. He sees more of like the real picture, which is why they wanted to like oust him.
Right, because he wasn't focused
David,
on like winning.
yeah. David, I feel like could also have that potential only because we find out in the book that his girlfriend is pregnant. So he's going to be a real father, and I think that would translate well in the future.
I mean, yeah, I think Soon was better preparing them, not just to be good hockey players, but to be good people, right? And I feel like, David and Peter a little bit were just more focused on like, how do we make this hockey team the best? And I think they were just following, repeating the cycle, right? Like, whatever they went through, that's what they were doing to the team without considering how they should be different or things should change or that the team should help them be better people. I mean, like, I have always heard what all of the benefits of joining a sports team are growing up, that like it instills certain values and it teaches teamwork and it does all this stuff. But if like your only priority is to win, then what are you like really learning at that point? Like, if it's like they're willing to do anything just to win and be bad people and do bad things and like and get penalties or whatever just to score points in the game, then it's not a great way to look at it. But there was this camaraderie that the boys had, but also again that toxic masculinity where they were like making these inappropriate jokes and like teasing each other in a very specific way. And like, we call it locker room talk, right? That's what people say, but like those things matter. Those things that are being said matter, especially when we think about how one of the players was actually gay. And so here he is playing for the team and hearing all his teammates say all these things and make these jokes about gay people and being super like homophobic. Like, he didn't feel like he could confide in anyone what he was going through or what he felt or who he was. And that sucks. And that's kind of tragic. And I think it took a little bit to get to that point, but I was really worried that because David, is angry when he finds out, right? And so for quite a few pages, I was like, damn, he's angry because he's homophobic and he can't believe that Benji is gay. But then it turns out that David was upset because Benji didn't feel like he could confide in him. So,
And
go ahead.
I think that's kind of part. Well, I kind of go both ways with David here. I feel like that is part of like what's going to help him in the future. Of he felt like he couldn't be confided in, but now he's about to be a new father, so maybe he wants to change a little bit. But at the same time, he went to Kevin after the incident and said, "Look me in the eye right now and tell me, did you do it?" And he believed him, even though it wasn't what happened. I mean, granted, if he's lying to his face, what's he going to do? But at the same time, I feel like it didn't help when they were trying to out Peter, um, because he still had to be a part of this thing with his star player, and not really, he couldn't really do anything about it because it was his girlfriend that said like you're a hockey coach, like it's not your job or something like that. So it's like he didn't really form he didn't really pick a side, but it felt like he was kind of on Kevin's side.
Which, like, how horrifying is that, like, for his daughter? Like, and she didn't want to speak up because she felt like and women feel this way when these things happen anyway, that nobody's going to believe them. But now you're talking about like the star hockey player, right? That this team that the whole town depends on. Like, how do you speak up about that? I mean, she eventually found her voice in order to do that, but I don't know. I mentioned before that I felt like Benji was my favorite character because he was always looking out for his friends, and very specifically he was very close to Kevin. But that night Benji knew something was up, and Benji was like, I'm getting out of here. Like, he did not want to be there for it, he didn't want to see it, he didn't want like and I think there was a very small part, and you can tell me if you agree or not, like, I couldn't tell if there was anything that actually happened between Benji and Kevin, or maybe if Benji just had like really strong feelings for Kevin. Um, like, I don't know if they just kept like a platonic friendship, or if maybe they experimented with each other or whatever, but
I don't think
like, it was never
anything
spelled
happened.
out.
No, I think it was just like strong feelings.
So I don't know if Benji left just because he didn't want to see Kevin with someone else, or if he just knew something bad was going to happen, and so he kind of left.
Decided to dip.
Yeah.
Kind of going back a little bit to when we were talking about Maya. I thought she was going to end up. I thought one of two things was going to happen. I thought she was either going to kill Kevin, or I thought she.
Well, I mean, that was
Yeah.
the whole setup. Like, the book start. The way. Hold on. The first line. What is the first line of this book? Because I was for sure. I had to reread it multiple times. Like, I kept going further in the story and then going back and be like, wait, what does this say? So it says, late one evening toward the end of March, a teenager picked up a double-barreled shotgun, walked into the forest, put the gun to someone else's forehead, and pulled the trigger. This is the story of how we got there. So I had to keep reading it. I was like, how is that worded? Did she actually kill the person? Or I didn't even think it was a she.
Yeah.
Throughout the whole story, I thought it was Amit.
Yeah. Well, she definitely didn't kill him, but I thought either he was going to die or she was going to die. And I didn't know which way it was going to go.
Yeah, so like, again, I kept rereading because I was like, does it say he? Does it say she? No, it says a teenager. So because of the setup, the way they were like explaining how much of a crush Amit had on Maya, and he walked in on what was happening, I thought for sure he was the one that had killed Kevin.
And I kept thinking back to that prologue, and thinking of the prologue, I would have thought that the tragedy would have been something with gun violence, not a sexual assault, just based off of the prologue alone.
Okay, so this says there are many different parents and styles of parenting portrayed in the book. Which parents do you think are the most successful at preparing their children for the real world, and why?
I mean, out of all of them that I can think of, probably Amit's mom, only because he gets to see the struggle that she has to do as a single mom, making sure that he is fed and able to play hockey and they have money and everything, even when she's in pain, like saying that her back was hurting so bad that she couldn't do whatever it was. I feel like he kind of saw the most.
Like, I kind of feel like Peter and Kira were trying to do a good job, but at the same time, like, I mean, it's such a complicated situation, right? Like, how do you tell your dad that his star player did that to you? So like I understand how much Maya struggled, but I guess maybe if their parenting was a little bit different, maybe she would have felt comfortable coming forward to them at the very least, whether she came forward to the cops or not. Like, because she held on to that for quite some time. I think it was like Anna that eventually convinced her to say something. But even though Benji's dad is not in the picture and he was kind of raised by his mom and his three sisters, I kind of feel like he ended up the best. Like he still kind of had this tough guy thing, obviously, because he had this internal struggle. Maybe he was trying to kind of hide the fact that he was gay and on the hockey team or whatever. But behind the scenes, he was mostly doing all the right things, whether he was trying to protect someone or be empathetic to someone or like stay out of trouble. And it's funny because like sometimes he was trying to stay out of somebody else's trouble, but then sometimes he was putting himself right at the forefront to cover for somebody. So, but at his heart, I felt like Benji was the best character, and you kind of have to give some credit to how he was raised and who raised him. Okay, so several characters must find the courage to go against the grain of the tight-knit Beartown community. What is at stake for each character who does so, and is it worth for them in the end?
I mean, is everyone is it not hockey that's at stake for everyone? That's what it feels like. I mean, like going back to Amit, for example, like his family doesn't have a lot of money, so his main thing is the money to be able to continue playing, but also to be able to get on to the whatever was it the juniors or the A team, whichever one's like the next level up for him. But also to not put his mom's job at risk, because doesn't she works for the rink for the club,
Mm-hmm.
so to make sure that she's able to keep her job. I mean everybody has something at stake in this book.
Obviously, and then there's Maya, right? Like, she was ostracized. She was not believed when she finally came forward and told the truth. And um, they tried to paint her as the villain, and like saying that she prompted the assault somehow, or that she was asking for it or wanted it. But ultimately, she finds her own power with coming forward, and she knows that it's something that she has to do, and she stands in that power. And I think she later goes on to be a very successful person. Like, that event understandably changed her, as it would change anyone. But some people kind of end up remaining a victim, but I don't think that's what happened to her. I think she um, grew stronger because of it. So, like, her decision to stand up was worth it in the end, and to go against the grain and everything else. Um, Trying to think. Oh, and then there was Ramona, right? Was that her name? I think that was her name. The lady that owned the bar. Um, she's someone else that kind of decided to stand up and be like, no, this is not okay. Um, and I feel like she was a really cool character. I didn't fully understand um, like who her husband was, or why her husband was. I mean, I know he was a hockey player, but it seemed like, after she lost him, she just was heavily drinking and still running the bar and stuff. But she wanted things to be better, so she stood up, and she took a stand for what she believed was right. And I think that was definitely worth it in the end. Like, people already respected her, but she maintained that respect for standing up for what she believed in. Mm-hmm. So it says, discuss the differences between male and female roles in the small village of Beartown. What is expected of the girls and women versus the boys and men? Which characters break these expectations, and what are the consequences of doing so?
I don't think there's, well, at least I didn't get like an expectation of the women in the town so much as it was more of like a the girls don't play hockey kind of thing. So, and it was like that's mostly for the boys and all that. I didn't really get an expectation of like what the girls were supposed to be doing besides just not playing hockey. Um, but that does that does kind of lead to a thought I had earlier of I liked the kind of the turnaround that the book did by the end of having girls learning to play. I think it was hockey or just learning
Yeah, yeah,
sports
yeah.
in general by the end of it. And that kind of I feel like it brought the story around completely from instead of just having this, toxic masculinity, very male heavy story to starting to bring in the female aspect of it as well.
Um, I think it was one of the teachers, right? Because there was most of the teachers were female. I don't remember any mention of like a male teacher. But it was one of the teachers that used to do something else. I don't know if she was into kickboxing, or she used to play hockey when she was younger, or what the deal was, but like, she decided to stop teaching, and then that was kind of what prompted having a female hockey team or whatever.
Yeah, and I think also some of it is, Kevin and some of these other star players and stuff were going to a completely different league, which left a lack of hockey team available in Beartown, which left an opening for something else.
Um, This says Maya is surprised by how easily she can start to lie to her best friend Anna and keep secrets from her. How do each character's secrets affect his or her relationship with loved ones? Consider secrets between friends, Maya and Anna, Kevin and Benji, Amat and Zach, as well as those between parents and children and husband and wives.
I mean, just look at the whole thing with the sexual assault secret. She didn't want to tell her parents or anybody, and she didn't tell them for a whole week until after it happened. So I mean, that right there is like the main secret.
Um, the what was happening with like Amit and Zach was kind of sad, because I feel like this sort of happened to me growing up, where I had this best friend and then I switched schools and then I started trying to make new friends, and you kind of get lost in trying to impress these new people that you forget who you were for your best friend. And I feel like Amit kind of goes through that a little bit, and he leaves Zach hanging a little bit in the beginning, and of course Zach is heartbroken because Amit's trying to be a different person, to hang out with these rude, toxic boys, and losing a little bit of himself. Um, and then of course he also walked in on what happened. I don't think Amit told anybody, right? Not until the end.
Yeah, not until the end when they were trying to do that. Which, speaking on that, I'd like to point out how I loved that even though Amit admitted he was drunk when he saw the assault happen, his whole story had enough influence to at least have somebody to stand up and say, I want to have it be an anonymous vote.
Um, why do you think Benji chooses? I think we kind of touched upon this a little bit, but it says, why do you think Benji chooses to stay in Beartown instead of following the? Oh no, we didn't talk about this. Instead of following the others to head, was his choice affected by his relationship with the bass player?
Was he one of the ones that believed that Kevin did do it?
Yeah, because he was Kevin's best friend. He was the one that dipped that night of the party. So, okay. And
well,
so
in that case, in that case, I think he is, by not following the team, yes, he loses his chance to play more hockey with the potential of the Beartown team going away. But I think he kind of like releases himself from that toxicity. He doesn't follow the star player off to wherever, and he's kind of it's like he's putting away a part of himself that he doesn't need anymore, if that makes sense.
I mean, I also feel like all the players that went to head went again following that win-win-win mentality, and I think Benji was like, no, I can be here and I can be happy and I can just play hockey. We don't have to always win. It could be just for the love of the game, the love of my teammates. I don't have to. We don't have to be the best team for it to be worth staying for, and I think he demonstrates that. Was his choice affected by the bass player? I don't know. I didn't get that feeling that was why.
No. The bass player I almost always forgot about. So I don't think he was influencing it at all.
I know there's another question here that's like, about their names. It says, consider the importance of names and nicknames throughout the novel. How does the lack of first names for Kevin's mother, Kevin's father, David's girlfriend, and Benji's bass player change your impression of them? What effect does calling Maya the young woman have on Maya and her own narrative? How does she start to reclaim her own story? So, I mean, I'm kind of glad they didn't give those people names because it would have just been like so much more, it already felt like a lot of characters. So now if you're going to name all these other characters, that's so much more. And obviously they were just there to kind of, they were supporting roles. They were there to help flush out the people that were named. I don't know how often Maya was referred to as the young woman though. I don't remember that.
I don't know how often she was referred to as that, but I definitely think that was a stylistic choice to kind of, I sound like an English teacher here, but to give this idea of like childhood has ended. She is now a young woman because of the incident.
Um, how does Maya's final act shape her future? How does it shape Kevin's? Do you think a form of justice is achieved? Why or why not? So what, and again, like I started watching the show, so like they definitely like changed things about the show. So what actually happened when Maya confronted Kevin with the gun? It says she pulled the trigger. It was on his forehead and she pulled the trigger. Was it empty?
That's what I don't understand or can't remember because he's still alive by the end. So
Right.
I don't remember.
I thought she had like, again, I don't know if I'm confusing it with the show, but I thought she had fired it, but like fired it away from him. Like not, obviously it wasn't pressed against his forehead when she pulled the trigger, unless the gun was empty. And then it just went like click, click, scared the shit out of him. But do you think her plan the whole time was to scare him, or do you think her plan was to kill him?
I mean, I did think somebody was going to die at some point, but I think it also could have been like something that she needed to do for herself, just to kind of scare him. Yes, but I I don't know how to word it. Like free herself from that. I don't know.
And I think like she says to him after she does it, I think she says something along the lines of, now you'll always be afraid of the dark too, or something like that. And I can't remember if I'm making this up, but he may have like peed himself in fear. I don't remember if that happened or if I just made that up.
I don't remember.
Do I think a form of justice is achieved?
I don't think there was, because there was justice in the sense of Peter was able to keep his job. Like he didn't, it, the members didn't
Didn't
kick
like
him
vote him.
out.
Right.
Yeah, I think there's a sense of justice with that, but there was not a sense of justice with the actual investigation because they closed it because of a lack of evidence.
Which like total shit, but I mean, if there was like any justice, it was in that I think Maya stopped fearing, right? Like I don't think she allowed that event to leave her as a victim. But I think Kevin remained in fear, always afraid that she might say something or tell someone or like And you see that in the interaction at the end where I think he's like in the car with his girlfriend or something like that, and they just kind of make eye contact and he looks petrified, but she keeps walking and she keeps going and she goes to live her life and play at the concert or whatever. So, which is a very small sense of justice, but at least she's able to keep on living her life how she wants as a very successful musician. And it doesn't seem like his life was what we expected it to be, with him being like the star hockey player or whatever.
But I mean, when you think about it, she did tell somebody and it didn't go anywhere.
Right, it didn't go anywhere, but like when we're talking from like a legal perspective, it didn't go anywhere, but I still think that if she wanted to tell every girlfriend he ever has from now until the end of time, like I think that would have some kind of an impact on his relationships. And I think that's what he was kind of fearful of when they made eye contact in the car. Because I don't think he was with his wife. I think he was with a girlfriend. At the end of the novel, do you think the tradition of the Beartown Hockey Club continues? Has its fundamental character changed? And how do you think it will change going forward?
I think that's kind of a question more left up to the sequel, because I didn't feel like we were left knowing what the fate of the hockey club was, except there was a lot of talk of there was unknowns of whether they were even going to have a team to play the next season. What was the other part of the question?
Has the fundamental character changed, and how do you think it will change going forward?
I definitely think the I don't know what other word to use except vibe. The vibe of the club and the town has definitely changed, like that feeling, because they've been rocked by this huge upset. So something definitely has to change. But as far as like the fate of the club and all of that, I think that's left up to the sequel.
I mean, I think just by, and I'm going to use the word energy, but just by bringing in like feminine energy, I think, and allowing a female hockey team, I think that's going to hopefully balance some of that toxic masculinity out. Because I don't think you can coach a female hockey team the same way you would a male hockey team, and you're going to have to bring in like female helpers and people and things, and that's just it. The approach is going to be completely different, and God willing, that would start to leak out into the male stuff a little bit, as you have like more moms and more women involved, with like probably a higher focus on empathy and teamwork and just some more emotional aspects versus just that win-win-win mentality.
Are there any other interesting questions?
Let me see here. In the course of the novel, we see that playing on a sports team teaches young people values like loyalty, responsibility, and commitment. But we also see instances of exclusion, aggression, and entitlement. Are there certain behaviors that are rewarded in a sports competition but considered inappropriate in daily life? Give examples. Which characters in the book have difficulty navigating this? So there is, I think sometimes things between friends, right? When they're private instances between friends, they can get a pass. And I think that can be okay. Like we often talk about, when people start firing off and saying things on Twitter, they're like, man, keep it in the group chat. Like you didn't have to express all those things to everyone. If you had just said it to your friends, nobody else would know. Your friends would understand the context. Um, and so while I don't think that like locker talk is great, um, and we should still be doing something to address it, like if the boys had kept some of what was happening just between like their small group of friends, um, then that probably would have been better than some of the things that ended up happening. So there was one character named Bobo, and I think he had trouble kind of figuring out time and place, whatever, because they were making all those jokes, while they were playing games and in the locker room. But then I think he called his teacher Sweet Cheeks. Did he call her that, or did he call her something else? Yeah, so completely inappropriate for him to speak to his teacher like that. And not only was he not able to identify how inappropriate it was, but he didn't care. It was so misogynistic. It was like on so many levels, it was just so wrong. And that there was a sense of entitlement there for him to think that he could speak to his teacher that way. Um, so I feel like that's kind of an example of not knowing where to draw the lines, or how to behave in certain situations. But I will say that, by the end of the book, he not only apologized to her, but he said he would never do that again. So at least there was like that character growth there.
Yeah, I agree. Because what I was thinking was like everything about locker talk is like a perfect example of how you can't take it out of the locker room essentially.
Um, so I don't know if you want to go ahead and just do final thoughts and then talk about the book that we're reading next month.
Yeah, that's fine. Do you want to go ahead and start with final
Yeah,
thoughts?
so just to kind of reiterate, I do really like Fredrik Backman's writing. I have a few of his other books. I almost bought one of them yesterday, but I was like, let me read the ones that I have before I buy another one. But I was very interested in this. I'll definitely be continuing the series. I already have the second one. I'm curious as to how, like, what direction they go in with the second one, because I don't think it necessarily follows the town and the team in the same exact way. So I don't know. I'd have to read the synopsis again, but I feel like Fredrik Backman, despite having so many characters in this town and showing us like all the different perspectives, I thought he did a great job of really getting me to care about the characters, to care about the town, to care about the team. And I think the message overall was a good message, in regards to just showing like how toxic masculinity presents itself, and the importance of the feminine energy, and like mothers and the power of women, and stuff like that. And so I really enjoyed this. I gave it 5 stars, and I will definitely be continuing on the series and reading all of his other books.
So my rating for this one was 2.5 stars. Because unfortunately my experience with the book was not the same as a lot of other people have had with this book. And in the sense of I think the build up to the assault was just a bit too long in my opinion. And um I kind of lost interest within those first 22 chapters. So I don't think I'll be continuing on with this series, but I'm not completely writing off this author, because I do have an interest in like A Man Called Ove, and I'm not sure about his other books besides this trilogy and that book. So I'm not completely writing him off, but um, I'll just kind of be keeping an eye and seeing what else is available to read from him. But unfortunately, this one was just not for me. Excuse me. And then on that note, we'll move to next month for June. And we are going to be reading, let me get the cover here. We're going to be reading Little White Lies by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. My understanding with this book is this is the first in a series. I'm not sure if it's like a duology or a trilogy, but this was her series that she did before the Inheritance games. So I believe it is also a mystery. And I really don't know anything about this book, so I don't have much to say on it right now. But you can join us for our live discussion on Sunday, June 25th at 6 p.m. Eastern on this channel again. And then you can make sure to follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Booktube Chicks for all updates regarding that or anything under the Booktube Chicks umbrella. Do we have a Pages and Pals date already? I can't remember.
I also can't remember.
I think it's actually we moved it.
I think we did move it. I have the 19th. Is that after we moved it?
Are you sure that's June? Because the 19th is a Monday.
No, that's not June. Sorry. Hold on. I know it's not the 9th because that's the Candlelight concert. So maybe.
I think we said the 23rd, but.
Yeah, we might have. I don't have it in here though.
Head to our social medias for actual confirmation on Pages and Pals because we cannot remember what the day is. And then for quarterly romance, we don't have anything for the rest of this quarter, but for our third quarter, we are going to be reading The Rewind by Allison Wynne Scotch. And we'll be talking about that in August. But you can follow us at Quarter Romance for that on Twitter, and then we also post about it on Booktube Chicks as well. But that's everything coming up with us. Hopefully we will see you all next month for the Little White Lies live discussion. And we will see you all then. Bye.